There are literally thousands of mods on the workshop for Warhammer 3, but not all of them are created equal. I've sifted through a bunch to bring you what I believe to be the top 5 mods for the month of July, starting with Nanu's dynamic Regiments of Renown. Unit XP in Warhammer 3 is one of those things I can almost guarantee that you forget exists. You keep a unit alive for 20 turns, they survive countless epic battles, racking up more kills than most factions, and their reward is an extra 8 leadership. I think you'll agree it's pretty underwhelming, and Nanu thinks too, which is why they've created this mod. The idea is that units that perform to a certain level should gain some renown in the form of powerful traits. The way this works is fairly simple to explain, at least if you believe the FAQ, but it's actually a very complex system with a massive number of new effects. So, after each battle, the system will check to see if you have any units eligible for becoming a Regiment of Renown. It works this out based on a total number of kills, amount of HP left, and unit cost. So if a unit absolutely cleans house with hundreds of kills, survives with just a sliver of health, or takes down much higher tier units, it is more likely to be up for promotion. To work out what effects to give, it checks a whole menagerie of factors like who and where you fought, your lord, the enemy lord, and more. So for example, I had a battle where some plague bearers did well versus dark elves, so they gained a trait to give them a bunch of missile defense, especially against elves. Then it works out a unique name for your unit based on who and where you fought, and the faction you were playing as. So I got Epidemius's Defilers of Black Rock. As I said, it's very simple to explain, but a lot is going on behind the scenes to decide what effects you gain, as well as a unique badass name. Plus the author claims there are 1500 effects bundles you can pick up, spread across 12 factions, and it all adds up to 2.5 million possible combinations. There's even custom projectiles and abilities, so listing every single effect in this mod will almost certainly take all year. Overall, I think this is a really cool system that gives some great variety to your armies and makes for a more interesting campaign. It makes units that perform amazing feats feel a lot more special, and gives a lot of character to your units, which I'm never going to complain about. My only real complaints are that it seems a little bit random when your units are eligible to gain new traits, since you can't really force it to happen manually outside of forcing a unit to carry your entire battle and almost die. I also wouldn't mind a little more fanfare when it does happen to let you know what the unit did to earn their title and the effects it brings. Still, a really cool mod that could have a place in literally any campaign. It's no secret that Siege are the most neglected of the monogod factions. Not only did they not receive a third lord, the mechanics for Kairos Fate Weaver are also a little bit bland. The Fateshapers Sanctum aims to fix this by granting him access to the Flesh Lab mechanic similar to Throt the Unclean. If you are familiar with the Skaven Lord, this will be pretty easy to pick up, but if not, we can explain everything lickety-split. From the Sanctum, you can choose a unit in your armies and apply various effects to them from a couple of interconnected webs. To unlock further effects, you simply have to unlock all prior effects, so the longer the game goes on, the more you'll have access to. The more effects you tack onto a unit, the higher the chance they'll become unstable, dropping their replenishment rate and increasing the chance of further instability. To do any of this, you spend threads, and these are gained via a gold exchange or emptying the Ether Flux. This is the name of the bar over on the left and is filled up through battles, buildings, and recycling unstable units. Once it reaches any of these tiers, you'll be able to empty it to gain some threads along with monsters for use in your armies. The exact units you gain vary based on which tier you empty it at, and unlike Throt, these are units from a bunch of different factions rather than just your own. You can pick up units from the Lizardmen, High Elves, Dark Elves and Ogres, so there are lots of options. Lastly, you also have the Ascension page in the Sanctum, which contains a bunch of different temporary and permanent effects for your faction. Of course, this is pretty much just a reskin of an existing mechanic ported over to Kairos, but I like the Flesh Lab and I think it makes a great addition to the campaign. I really do think that Kairos got screwed with Shadows of Change, so giving him a new mechanic softens the blow somewhat and makes him a little more tempting to play. Do you ever think it's strange how you can build all of these armies and it doesn't affect your settlements in the slightest? I mean, those soldiers have to come from somewhere, and having too many has got to put a strain on your population. Well, with the People of Ulthuan mod, you now have to keep the population of your empire in mind when it comes to building armies. Each settlement you own contributes to your total available population, and the exact amount changes based on the size of the settlement, its location, and any special features such as ports. Ulthuan settlements gain a flat 50% bonus right out the gate, and new non-Ulthuan settlements will start out contributing nothing, but will increase by 10% per turn until they reach their full capacity to properly simulate your population moving in. Non-Ulthuan regions also gain a 10% bonus population by bordering other owned regions, and those with no friendly neighbours suffer a 20% penalty. Climate preferences will also hinder settlements' contributions, making any settlements less than suitable even less tempting than usual. Corruption of any kind also reduces population, and it's a 1-to-1 conversion of corruption to percentage reductions. Every unit you recruit then consumes a certain amount of population, and the exact amount varies based on the unit. Some units you're just looking at the number of entities, some more elite units it's a lot more. From what I can tell, there isn't really a way to see how much population each unit will consume until you've actually recruited them, but if I'm missing something, by all means tell me in the comments. When units die, they aren't just erased from your population and are instead converted into the Lost Generation. This is basically a pool that all casualties are added to that is slowly erased by 3% of your total population cap per turn. It's pretty much a way to ensure that you can't just burn armies with no repercussions, and you have to actually recover from your losses. When all is said and done, your current units and Lost Generation will consume a certain amount of your total population cap, and based on the exact amount, your faction will receive a variety of effects, good and bad. You may think the lower the better, and whilst that may be true for your settlements, your armies can actually suffer with increased upkeep and reduced replenishment from a populace that is unwilling to fight. Equally, at very high levels of overconsumption, your settlements will pretty much grind to a halt, but your armies will gain a massive stat bonus and reduced upkeep from the dire situation they must have found themselves in. Generally, I think this is a system you will have in the background rather than something you'll be actively working to manipulate, but still, I'm a really big fan as it does help marry your settlements and armies together in a way that I've never really seen done before. And if you're also a big fan of this system, they've made something similar for Dark Elves and Dwarves with their own set of effects and modifiers. Chaos in all its forms has seen a lot of glow-ups over the years, but ironically enough, the one branch that's always been left behind is Undivided. Especially if we're talking about the Warriors of Chaos in particular, their lords and heroes. You have all these paths to the 4 monogods, but if you choose to remain undivided, you don't really get anything in return. Well, with Path to Glory expanded, that is changing. Now you'll get an event pop up early in your lord and hero's careers asking if you would like to remain undivided, or have the option to follow one of the monogods. If you choose undivided, it forces you to commit by making the paths to the monogods completely unaffordable, but you get a fat stack of bonuses in exchange. They gain a boost to undivided authority and corruption, reduced costs for recruiting, upkeep and upgrading undivided units, along with a passive buff, increased XP, and a powerful passive for the lord themselves. For your lords, you get another event pop up when they reach a certain level, and they will have the choice to remain mortal and claim one of 3 powerful titles depending on your lord type, or reject them all, leaving you with the usual option to ascend to a demon prince later. Champions gain a huge boost to their battle prowess, catalysts gain buffs to their magical ability, and commanders gain more buffs to their units and those passives from earlier. One last change from this mod is actually to the monogod factions. When your heralds are given the option to become greater demons, you can reject it to become exalted heralds, which come with yet another fat stack of bonuses. Of course, it varies from monogod to monogod, but generally you're looking at huge buffs to the leader and their army to keep them competitive with the greater demons. Personally, I'm a huge fan of this entire mod since it just gives you more options with how exactly you want to build your lords and heroes, and even armies. Each choice should be rewarded rather than some just being obviously better than others, so I'm very glad that this evens the playing field. The endgame crises are soon to get an overhaul with the End Times DLC, whenever that may be, please soon. But in the meantime, why not add some new custom scenarios? Bretonnia are another of the unloved and forgotten children of CA, desperate for attention, relatable, so it only makes sense to smash them both together. The Grand Crusade crisis causes Bretonnia to launch all-out war on the rest of the world with the goal of taking everything for themselves. The Green Knight is obviously a big part of this, and whoever controls Corone will be able to summon him into battles. As the crisis develops, provided you aren't playing as Corone, settlements between your capital and Corone will be marked as Holy Grail sites. If a Bretonnian faction controls them after 5 turns, a stack of Grail Knights will spawn, so it should be a major priority to move towards Bretonnia, taking their settlements as you do, to slow the onslaught of armies. Naturally, the only way to stop the never-ending torrent of knights is to wipe all traces of Bretonnia off the map, and given it's a fairly large landmass, it's going to be no small feat. Now granted, I was testing the crisis out by triggering it as early as possible, but the level of power they gained in an instant was pretty scary, and would be a lot to deal with even if I was deep into a campaign. They have such an ungodly large number of armies, and almost all of those units are on horseback, making them a very unique challenge to get rid of. If you're looking to spice up the endgame crisis and fancy breathing a little life into AI Bretonnia at the same time, this is a great mod to do just that. I can't promise it'll be balanced, but at the very least, it will feel like a crisis. Plus, it is a little bit more interactive with those Holy Grail sites, so at the very least you have something to work towards as they try to run you off the map. But if you instead want to run enemies off the map yourself, why not check out this mod which adds tanks to the Chaos Dwarves.